Well, thank you for joining us for these conversations here on Marque Live. As always, I'm your Public Relations Officer, JB Pritchett, and my guest with me today, January 11th, is going to be attorney Duana Boswell-Lochel, who is from the Boswell Law Firm, and she is not only an attorney that represents victims, but she is an advocate for those that are affected by human slavery and trafficking. And so, Duana, thank you for being here. It's such a pleasure. I love all of our conversations, but this one specifically, you gave a presentation at a community event that really brought awareness to a lot of us, as well as kind of put this on the map for us. You know, one of the things that you really touched for me is the fact that Texas, and specifically Houston and Greater Houston, was such a hot spot for human trafficking. And so before we get into all of that, I just wanted to give us a little bit of information about yourself, your firm, and the work that you do in human trafficking awareness.
Well, first, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
And the opportunity to just spread the awareness of this very important topic. My name is Duana Boswell-Lochel, and I'm owner and CEO of the Boswell Law Firm. And we are a family and probate law firm. And one of my passions is to spread awareness of the fact that human trafficking and slavery exists in our communities. And it's very important for this awareness so that we can, educate ourselves. And as we educate ourselves, hopefully we'll be able to eventually eradicate the slavery and trafficking that's happening.
For sure. I think, again, and I'm kind of pulling from off-screen conversations that we had, your presentation specifically, but, can we talk a little bit about how, Texas as a whole, but specifically Houston and what affect us as Greater Houston is really a hot spot for human trafficking. Why is that?
So Houston is ranked #1 for human trafficking, and it goes to just the largeness of the city. It goes to the fact that it's a port city, and that we do just have such a large population that it's hard to know what's going on. And actually, since COVID, the online trafficking has greatly improved, and not improved, but increased.
Sure, increased. And so, that was something that was extremely interesting to me, having been someone who grew up not only in the digital age. The internet was, you play games with people online, you can order a pizza, you have a space for friends, shameless plug to MySpace, but all of these things were a place of the internet. The internet is also a tool, and it's a tool that can be used for things that are less than good in the world. And so as a parent, as as someone who has, I have 5 sisters, I didn't know if you knew that, but as someone who, has been around and want to be able to protect those around us, what are some of the signs or red flags in the digital age, or when it comes to parenting online, that we can be aware of?
So it's really important to know that statistics show that the typical contact of a trafficker to their victim online is 11 years old.
Wow, it's much younger than I thought.
Yeah, it's very young. So this is something for parents to start thinking about when their children are very young. Schools are now doing online teachings, and so they're actually handing out electronic devices to our children, and they can be used by these traffickers to get in contact with our children. And they're using social media, they're using emails, and what they'll do is they'll troll the social media sites.
Sure.
And look for these kids that are posting out there, I hate my parents, or, just typical things that, preteens and teens would typically say.
I was about to say it's something that an angry teenager might say from an emotional standpoint, and then they kind of swoop in to, be the helping hand, if you will.
Yes. And they'll start the grooming process at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So they're looking for these vulnerables.
That's a term that you use right now that maybe not everybody would be aware of. When you say the grooming process, tell me a little bit about what that means.
So the grooming process is the initial contact between a trafficker and their potential victim. And they'll get into that space where they're their support, that they're showing them love that they may be missing from a parent or grandparent or somebody in their life. And they'll just keep increasing that support. And they may send them gifts. They may ask them to meet them somewhere and buy them gifts. And so they become this support, and they start isolating the individual from their real support system, so that this person becomes the person that they rely on. And then once they get them to a certain point, then they start introducing them to the sex trafficking.
Okay. So I guess for me, especially when we talk about the digital age, when we talk about parts of human trafficking that start off online, whether it's social media, whether it is forums, or any of the places online that people can make connections. Now, as a parent, I know that is a fear, but how do I combat that? Are there resources, are there tools that can be used in order to combat some of that?
There are. I mean, the biggest resource is just pay attention and be aware
Sure.
of what your kids are doing and where they're going online. But there is an app in particular that I advocate for, which is called Barque, B-A-R-C. And it's an app that you can put on phones, you can put on iPads, you can put on computers, that will monitor the conversations that your children are having online. And it's programmed that it's going to identify certain words and phrases that would tend to lead to cyberbullying or trafficking situations, and it would notify the parents. And that allows the children to keep some semblance of privacy, because it doesn't share every conversation with the parents.
Sure.
But it does identify troubling conversations to make them aware.
Absolutely. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about how that can start online, start in the digital world, but it can easily translate to real life. You can notice aspects, or you can suspect the grooming process online from a digital aspect. But let's say I'm standing in line at the grocery store. Let's say I'm pumping gas. Let's say that I'm anywhere and everywhere that I go on a regular basis in my life, in Lamarque, Greater Houston, wherever. What am I looking out for in real life? What are some of the red flags, if you will, in a situation like that?
So some things you can really look for when you're out and about is pay attention. And if you see a young girl with an older male individual typically, or a young man with an older female or older male, pay attention to that and see if it's a relationship that's off. There should be something a little odd about it. That may look romantic. It may look like she's walking behind him a little bit with her head down. They don't typically make eye contact with people. They won't have their own identification on them. A lot of times they're branded in some way, usually a tattoo that's got dollar signs, crowns, barcodes are typically there with usually some identifier of who their trafficker is. So those are some things to watch out for. With your own children, watch out for gifts that you don't know where they come from. Additional phones, iPads that they're withdrawing from everybody that they know. Those are some typical things you can look for.
Sure.
There's also an international symbol for help.
Okay.
So they'll hold their thumb in, their hands over, and they'll flash that. And typically they're going to do it in a discreet way. So maybe behind their back, or when their trafficker's not looking, they'll flash it. So if you see that, then that's something that they're asking for help, and they're in a situation they don't know what to do with.
And so I guess in thinking of that process for me, we're in a situation where we do see that. We're in a situation where we may suspect that human trafficking is going on, whether that be, just something's off. You feel it. We all kind of have that gut feeling. In the event that someone does suspect that trafficking is going on, you said once before, just kind of pay attention If you're a parent, pay attention to what your kids are doing online. If you're in real life, you want to pay attention to what is specifically going on around you. So let's say that you do see that, the international symbol for help. And like you said, it's probably done in a discreet way or some sense. But in any event that you suspect that trafficking is going on, what are the steps in that?
So first of all, do not approach the trafficker or the suspected victim. It could put you in danger and the victim in danger. So make sure that you kind of watch them from a distance and call 911 and tell them that you believe that there may be some trafficking going on. Or if you see it and it's something that's not an immediate for you, there are some hotlines that I believe you're going to give information for.
Absolutely.
At the end of this, that you can call and report suspicions. But kind of watch from a distance, see where they go, see if they get in a car, get tag numbers, that sort of thing. But most importantly, just don't make it look like you are doing those things, because it could be a very dangerous situation.
Absolutely. Well, and I think for me, more than anything else, is thinking about that, whether it's, our citizens, our residents, or anyone, if they notice those things going on, it's important for them to know not to approach. We have police officers and we have people in emergency services that are there to do that job. I think for me, more than anything else, it is trying to get the information specifically, whether you are trying to get the make and model of the car, the license plate, a description, all of these things. We've worked with other advocates, and you've done this presentation at community partner events. And one of the things that I remember is trying to write this stuff down as quickly as possible, whether it's making notes in your phone or all the above, so that if you do contact the authorities or a hotline, you can give all of this information to whereas, I know sometimes it may feel timid and really the whole point is if you suspect it, not to overreact. Really the number one thing is not to approach, but try to gather all of that information. Again, make and model of the vehicle, license plate of the vehicle, description of the people involved, all the above, in order to report that as suspected trafficking. For me, as we're looking at this, as we're talking about this, we're bringing awareness to our community about what is going on. And like you said, Greater Houston is that kind of larger number one place in the continental United States. I just thank you so much for being here today, bringing awareness of this. Obviously, if you have any questions whatsoever, if you want to learn more about Marque, if you want to learn more about those resources, you can contact Duana and her group at the Boswell Law Firm. That information is at the screen, at the bottom of your screen. Please do not hesitate to contact her and her team as they are working hard at advocating for victims of human trafficking, but also bringing awareness for all of this, for not only the citizens of La Marque, but myself as being more educated in this. I thank you for it. It is, a good fight and one that, I hope doesn't get overlooked.
Thank you again for the opportunity to spread the word.
Absolutely. One of the major things in talking about this is if you think or if you have any questions whatsoever, if you want to call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, that can be done at the number at the bottom of your screen. That is 888-373-7888. Again, you can contact that to report suspicious activity. If you need to talk, if you are a victim in any way, shape, or form of human trafficking or human slavery, please take this time, the opportunity. For those of you that are out and about in the community, please pay attention, be aware of what's going on. Parents, be aware of your children's online activity. Use resources such as Marque or anything else. Again, for more of that information, you can contact Duana as a community partner pushing for the advocacy of human trafficking. And thank you for joining us of this important conversation.